Alright, so this video is not something, or not the normal type of video I'd make, but the racing this weekend around the world just doesn't excite me that much, so I think now's a good time to make it. So I'm going to be talking about racetracks around the world that are good, but when I say good, I don't mean like the race day, like how much a pint of beer is, what the food's like, that sort of thing. That's a separate video, but I'm going to be talking about the tracks that I think yield the best results and where the form guide actually means the most, where the best horses win, the best jockeys win at their, or the horses win at their best distance, that type of thing. And I'm also going to factor in the weather as well. So, like say a track that has a beautiful layout, normally has a wet surface, then I'm going to rank it accordingly down a little bit, as opposed to somewhere where it doesn't rain as much. So yeah, different sort of video today, but this is the sort of thing I think about, like what track I'm going to bet on, because around the world there's a lot of like really average tracks. I've come to realise, they might be a good race day, but just to bet on, they're just a nightmare. Most notably off the top of my head is Kentucky Downs, that one meeting they have in America every year. That just is a complete disaster. The form doesn't really mean anything, and the winners there don't usually go on to do much. Although last year was an exception, obviously. I forget what it's called. It's got spice in its name. It won the turf sprint. It came from Kentucky Downs. It won there. So she's so spicy. That's the horse. Don't know why I died then trying to think of it. But anyways, number 10 is Randwick. Obviously, Randwick's in Sydney. It's just a really nice track, to be honest. I've got two Aussie tracks in this list. Randwick's the second best of the two that I've put down. Yeah, it's just a nice track. You do get a few seasons here and there where it's a bit wet. You might get a few heavy tracks in a row, but for the most part, it's just a nice straight. The 2,000 metre course is quite nice. They go kind of up the side near the road, and yeah, it's not too bad if you're drawn wide. Obviously, it's always bad if you're drawn wide in most cases, but yeah, Randwick's just a nice sort of bettable track where form stacks up quite nicely, and if a horse hasn't ran there and it runs there for the first or second time, it's going to be okay because the track's quite fair. And another thing to mention with this list as well, like in my opinion, these tracks don't have as much of a bias as some other places around the world. So that's another thing when you're looking at the form. It's one less thing to worry about, track bias. So yeah, Randwick's in this top 10. Number 9's Keeneland. It's the only American track I've got on here, just because I don't know, that they're kind of, well, firstly they're good because they have both turf and dirt, but I don't know, they're just a bit like, they just get racing. I don't know if it's to do with the jockeys or it might just be the racing style, but they just get racing at such weird points in the track. And I feel like at Keeneland, the way it's set up, like I think it's a little bit hilly by the looks of it, but the way it's set up, it's kind of like they get racing at the right time, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't make sense, but I feel like in American races, they just get racing so early. And I think Keeneland, gets competitive right till the end. Horses aren't spent at the very, last furlong or so. Just something I've noticed. I think Keeneland's a nice track. In America, you've got, on the West Coast, you've got Del Mar and Santa Anita, which, are quite similar. They have quite short straights. But yeah, they get racing a lot really early there, that sort of thing. And I feel like that's, if they're going to get racing early, it can be like kind of hard to factor that into a bet. So unless you're really, clued up on American racing. So I'll move on to number 8, Kyoto, in Japan. It's one of 3 Japanese tracks I've got on here. And to be completely honest, like with the Japanese tracks, it's hard to separate them. Like they're all really good, and you'll most of the time get a really hard track. Like, it's probably harder than you'd want in other places, but it's because Japan, the horses are used to it. It can be quite hard. However, it does make for really good betting. You don't have to worry about a wet track or how horses have done on the wet. For the most part, it is irrelevant. I get that occasionally they do have a bit of rain here and there, and it can be soft, but yeah, in general, Japanese tracks are great, and Kyoto's really good because, like, especially if it's a mile race, like the mile championship this year, or just any race over a mile there, they've got this massive stretch. I think it's like, I don't know how far it is. I think it's like 600 meters or something, but if you're drawn at like 15 or 16, like you have just as much chance as barrier 1, to be honest, because there's that much time to like get across and get a spot. And I really like that for tracks. If you're drawn wide, it's not the worst thing. Whereas you get some tracks, and if you're drawn wide, you are completely screwed. So yeah, I think Kyoto is just a nice track. But yeah, as I said, the Japanese tracks are hard to decipher which are better. So yeah, I just know Kyoto's got a perfect mile track, and that's about it. So I'll move on to Longchamp. This is kind of, I think it's a bit of a controversial one, to be honest, because just like the way it's laid out, like if you start off at a mile and a half, like they get running, and then if you're wide at that turn, you've lost the race pretty much. Because it's weird how it's like they turn, they go straight, they turn, they go straight. It's weird how it's got like it's not circular, the end of the track. It's like in straights, which is kind of weird, and you are screwed if you're drawn wide, or you're stuck 4 wide. But I think for the most part, like if you're drawn okay, and your horse is like, because it can get wet there, obviously in the French tracks, you got to factor that in. But I think it's just a good track, The 5 furlong track is kind of weird. I remember I went last year to the Arc, and when we were watching, I actually had no idea where the 5 furlong course was. So that was kind of weird. And they run it in the opposite direction to the other races on the main track. So yeah, Longchamp, it's a bit of a controversial one. Maybe it should be a bit lower, but if you get on if you get like a dry day, maybe a little bit of give in the ground, because the horses there have form on soft ground, then it can make for really good betting. And also with Longchamp as well, if you get a really big race day there, you have horses coming from France, Ireland. Last year we saw quite a lot of Japanese horses running there, not just for the staying races, but we saw Ascoli Pacino running in the Prix Jacques Le Marois. I think that's actually Chantilly, but you get where I'm going. They're racing in France. That jurisdiction is attracting horses from all over the place. But I'll move on. Got Nakayama next. Same thing as I said before. Just extending on what I said about Kyoto. Yeah, just a nice big rolling track. Obviously, they had their huge race there at the end of the year, the Arima Kanen, over 2,500 meters. And yeah, it's just such a nice, like, sort of fair race. I get it when they jump out, like, because they're in the straight, it can be tricky if you're drawn wide. But yeah, it's just, Japanese tracks, it's good ground. It's just, perfect racing. And like Japan, the racing in Japan as a jurisdiction is, one of the best in the world. Like you can make a bit of a like tantrum about some of the jockeys and stuff, but like for the most part, if you find a few good jockeys and ones that are in form on certain horses, then you can get by. And it's just competitive racing. It's not just favourites winning all the time, although, you do see like a $2 horse ridden by Christophe Patrice Lemaire, and you kind of shit yourself if you're looking at something else. So yeah, just Japan in general is a great jurisdiction. I'll move on to number 5 in the list, Sha Tin. One of 2 tracks in Hong Kong. You got Sha Tin and Happy Valley. It's an excellent track, isn't it? It's always, it's an Asian track, so it'll be nice ground. My only like complaint, and it's not really a complaint, is that international horses there have such a hard time getting past like the stars of Hong Kong, unless it's 2,400 meters, which is where the Europeans excel, as we've seen. Like Sosi and Junko, those sorts of horses win the Hong Kong Vars in the past. Rebels Romance won a Champions and Chater Cup. Yeah, it's just the horses there that run in Group 1s there all year, every year. And they're geldings as well, so they can do it for 5 years if they have to. We saw it with Romantic Warrior. We saw it with Golden 60. We're going to see it with Kaying Rising. Those horses just absolutely farm those Group 1s, and they're so dialed in with world-class jockeys contracted to ride there, like Zach Burton. You got Hugh Bowman, those sorts of people. J-Mac will probably get a contract there in the distant future. But yeah, that it does take away the competitive side a little bit. But at the same time, it's just such a good track. It's quite, to be fair, it's quite similar to Randwick, but yeah, obviously in Australia the horses have more options. In Hong Kong they don't. The good ones run there and that's it. So they're just so dialed in. But besides that, if you're betting on handicaps or you're looking for somewhat competitive racing. It's just perfect. And that meeting at the end of the year, the Hong Kong International meeting, for me is one of the most exciting meetings of the year, because you get 4 absolutely elite Group 1s, and it attracts a crowd from Australia, France, England, Ireland. It's truly an international meeting, and it's good. Although the Hong Kong stars do absolutely farm those races, so and they win at like $1.50. So yeah, if you like backing short price favourites, Sha Tin might be for you. But we'll move on to Tokyo at number 4. The home of the Japan Cup at the end of every year. To be fair, I don't have much to talk about it that I haven't covered with the past two, Nakayama and Kyoto. It's just a nice big track. In the Japan Cup, if you're drawn wide, it is a bit tricky, but that applies to any of those races where, it starts off in the straight and you're going into the corner. It's a bit tricky, but for the most part, it's a nice track. It's rolling straights. It's kind of annoying with when you come around the top corner, like as you go into the straight, there's a little bit of a hill, but I guess that just adds another dimension to the race. And we see that in other tracks around the world, like Ascot. It's got that little uphill rise, over 2,000 meters. So, that's just how tracks are built sometimes. But yeah, as I mentioned, Ascot, it'll be in number 3. It's obviously, for me, it's miles better than any other track in England to bet on. I did have York in the list initially, but it got pushed out because York's actually okay. It's got the long sprinting track, or the 1,000 meters, whatever you like. I think it's 1,200 meters too. It's a nice big wide track, York. But we'll go back to Ascot. Yeah, it's just I've had so many value winners there. Most notably, you'll see on my Twitter and on my YouTube, my banners are just Goliath winning. That's my biggest price winner I've ever had. But that kind of reinforces my point that, if a race is run a certain way and a horse has good form and a good jockey and is at its best distance, it doesn't matter what price they are. They can win or, run in the top 3. So yeah, Ascot's, it's such a good track. And even if you get a few, rainy days, those European horses are very accustomed to running on the wet. And then you get, Royal Ascot, for example, last year was just perfect weather all day. It was almost probably on the too fast side for the last few days, but it was just perfect, and there was plenty of value to be found. So we'll move on to the final 2. Number 2, Flemington. What a track! Genuinely one of the best tracks in the world. I've never been there, but I think I might be going this year for the Melbourne Cup. It's just an unreal track. You got the 1,200 meters straight, and even on the main, the course proper, or the main track, whatever you like. When they come into the turn, they've still got 500 meters to go, so it just gives them so much time, and they don't get racing too early or anything. They're always really composed going into the straight, and it's just it just gives the punter, I reckon, a really even chance of winning if you found a horse that's flying a bit under the radar. My only concern is, because it's so good, right? You get some horses from Moonee Valley and Caulfield, which are the other 2 big tracks in Melbourne, and because they're such different tracks to Flemington, they're kind of alone out on that big field, if that makes sense. Moonee Valley's a bit of a cauldron. Caulfield's a fucking weird track, just full stop. I could go on for a while about Caulfield, but Caulfield and Moonee Valley, you can kind of put them in the same category, and then they run this absolute stadium of Flemington, and it's massive, and it can sometimes be hard to stack up Caulfield and Moonee Valley form to Flemington, but for the most part, Flemington, it's so adaptable for horses that come from overseas, that sort of thing. So obviously we saw more of those overseas horses race there before the protocols. Obviously we see less now, but it's just I think in Australia it's the best track in terms of giving the horse the best chance, if it runs to its merits. It's just good all round. So before I move on to number 1, I've got some honourable mentions. I've got Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. This is kind of a weird one because they run there once a year. Well, they have one big meeting there every year, which is the Saudi Cup meeting. And I just reckon it's perfect. They've got the turf and the dirt. Just beautiful ground. It's just, yeah, they don't run there very often, so it's kind of hard to, make a educated decision on, whether it's an even playing field. I think Riyadh, if they had more meetings there, it'd be class, like just plenty of value. They've got the Curragh. It's alright. It can get very wet there. That's my only problem with the Irish tracks. It can hammer it down, and it can just be a bloody mud pit essentially. So it'll be an honourable mention for now. And then you got Newmarket. Obviously, it's all in the straight pretty much. That's my only issue with it. There's no bends. You do need a real sort of Newmarket specialist to do well there. Obviously, Ruling Court, Ruling Court won the Guineas after never ran there. But but yeah, Newmarket can be a bit weird. It can. Oh, it's a fucking fly. It can be a little bit strange. I remember in Nick Luck and Kevin Blake's Year of Review podcast, Kevin Blake described the Newmarket Straight as a skateboard or a skating ramp, and it was using this to talk about Field of Gold's run in the 2000 Guineas last year. How big horses can kind of struggle in that dip that goes down and out. It's around the 100 meters, 200 meters. So, it can be a bit uneven, and you can get crazy tailwinds there. The wind can be a factor, and when you're doing the form, and you don't want to have to fucking think about the wind, do you? It's one of those things you kind of just notice on the day. All right, so they're the honourable mentions. Now, number one is Meydan. Obviously, Meydan's the home of the Dubai World Cup. It's got racing on the turf and the dirt, and we see during the Dubai Carnival, we see horses from literally fucking every corner of the planet race there. You got Japanese coming over. You've got horses that are owned by South Americans who ship them there because there's crazy money on offer for the dirt racing. And it's just really good racing, to be honest. The turf there's just perfect. The same with Riyadh, I guess. With all those sort of Middle Eastern countries, you just get perfect ground. Although, to be fair, last year in Qatar, there was something way off with the ground there. I think two horses died, or I know one definitely did. And horses were slipping all over the place. You don't want that, but we've never seen that, or at least recently at Meydan. So, yeah, it's just really nice ground. Obviously it's got the straight. This is the thing with these tracks. All the ones that I mentioned have big long stretches where horses or jockeys rather can make big moves and not get punished for it with a bend, that type of thing. So yeah, for me, Meydan's the best track in the world to bet on. Yeah, it's just different form guides intertwining. You get amazing jockeys there, the regulars that ride there, such as Tygo Shea, Sylvester de Souza, Connor Beasley, who's for me criminally underrated. You just get these really elite jockeys who go there for the winter, and obviously you get the guys that fly in as well, like James Doyle, those sorts of guys, William Buick. So for me, yeah, Meydan's just excellent betting. Just great racing across the board, and then at the end of the 4 months or whatever it is, you get the Dubai World Cup Carnival, which is just the absolute pinnacle of racing. I'd love to go to that meeting one day. Not sure how much of a drinking meeting it is, but it's great betting, and it's just class. So different video from me today. I just couldn't really think of anything to talk about with the racing on this weekend. Although I think there's a listed race in Dubai, and there's some listed races in Japan too. But as I said, didn't excite me that much, so I thought I'd make this video. Hopefully you only bet on these tracks from now on and nowhere else. No, I'm kidding. But if you like this sort of thing, like and subscribe. I'll see you later.